So, hi guys. My name is Vinny. I'm a senior in biomedical engineering, and I'm a part of Nima, the education team, a project team of BLUElab.
Hi, I'm Timothy. I'm a sophomore member of the education team studying material science and engineering. And today we're going to give you a brief overview of what the education project team does. We'll cover the two main components, which is when we travel to Samoa St. Lucas, we conduct English lessons as well as after-school camps. So we'll go over into what we do there. For today's design review, we'll start off talking about what we do with these after-school camps. We'll give you a little bit of insight into how we plan these lessons that we do and our plan for upcoming years. After that, we'll go into a little bit about our engineering project, which is the solar lights education, what we hope to achieve with these solar lights, and a couple of examples for how we might implement these solar lights into our education component. And we'd like to keep in mind that we will have a little question and answer session at the end, so if you could give us some feedback about effective mechanisms for our feedback in the education component.
Cool. So, a little bit of background about what we do in Nima, and specifically what we do in education. In Nima, we believe that not only the design component is critical in the success of a project, but also community trust, communication, and obviously building a partnership with that community is so critical, and that's why we have an education component to build on each one of those aspects. So our project team mission is identifying and executing a development solution in a culturally sustainable manner, and this is something we strive to do in all of the teams in Nima. We identified this project from Samoa San Lucas, which is a rural Guatemalan community, and it began as a group of engineering-focused projects, and that in turn has led to the advent of the education team because we valued that particular aspect of project development so much. We identified it through our NGO partner, Casacito, who has had a close relationship with this community, especially with their middle school, in which they have developed after-school program or other various types of projects in that school. And from that, we have the development of our two project teams, the engineering team, which you've heard earlier about today, and also our education team, which holds these two types of projects, sub-projects, after-school camps, and English lessons. And we consider ourselves to be in Gate S. We've had 10 trips to Samoa San Lucas since 2008.
Okay, so obviously when we're conducting these English lessons and after-school camps, we encounter some obstacles and challenges with these. A couple of them involve the interaction between engaging students outside the classroom. Obviously, it's very easy to just get caught up in having students sit in a classroom and copy down what's on the board. So something we really like to emphasize is making sure that the students that we work with are really engaged in what they're doing and what they're learning, how it all comes together. Beyond that, we want to make sure that what the students are doing in class is relevant to what we're trying to teach them outside the classroom. We always want to make sure that there's this connection between what they're learning and what we're trying to teach them. Beyond that, a very difficult problem that we encounter several times is the voluntary participation of these students. Of course, they're going to require some engagement from our end, but ideally we'd like all these students to be able to get involved in these activities without any prior request. Some possible solutions, we've had community members, whether it be teachers, adults from the community, parents of the children, request our group to provide these after-school camps and English lessons for these students, normally ranging from the elementary to middle school range. Okay, so a little bit about what these after-school camps are. So initially the community members as well as the teachers of these schools came to us and asked us if we could provide some sort of after-school camp for these children to further enhance what they were learning in the classroom. These after-school camps, we focus really on trying to get the students to communicate amongst each other and work together. So a lot of the activities that we plan involve a lot of teamwork, communication amongst other students, and just interaction in general. As a result, this really develops our relationship with the community as well as the parents of the children. So we get that nice fostering relationship between the two groups, the Nima Collaborative and the community. And as a positive byproduct, the students tend to enjoy what we're doing with them. Ideally, that's what we're going for. The people who really have say in what's going on, definitely the students. That's first and foremost. It's all about the students and consequently their families. Furthermore, the teachers and the community members also have a say in what's going on with what we're conducting.
So now I'm going to talk a little bit about what has been done in the past, specifically with our partner NGO Casacito. They've implemented several workshops in the middle school to help develop confidence and trust within the community, not only with NGOs, but also amongst the students in there so that they can gain the communication skills and teamwork skills necessary to improve and improve their chances into getting into higher education and succeeding in higher education. They have action-based classes like PE, where teachers use more of an interactive approach, which is somewhat novel in the Guatemalan teaching style. I'll cover that a little bit later. And also, they believe that the teaching style employed currently is not really conducive to the retention of material. So it's really a duality between the instructivist versus the constructivist approach. And by that I mean instructivist learning basically means that knowledge exists independently of the learner and is transferred to the student by the teacher. So that can be by lectures or by other sorts of means in which you're passing on material without allowing the students to engage. Whereas constructivist learning is actually where learning is done by constructing new knowledge through a process of analyzing new information, assimilating that information into the existing system of which you already know, and comparing it to previous knowledge. So in this method of learning, it's not as much rote learning as what we've seen previously when we went to Guatemala. The past Nima education products, we've had after-school camps start informally since May 2008. This was after school may our previous project, which involved a biosand water filter, and it has since continued since 2013, May 2013 and March 2014. English lessons started at the primary school just this past year, and after seeing some moderate success with that project, we've continued it up until this last spring break, which we went on. So now I'll talk a little bit about the requirements what we set out for ourselves in the education team. This was basically evaluated on past trip goers' experiences, measured by how much student participation there was, how much engagement there was with the activity, and how much they seemed to retain about the knowledge after the activity was performed. And as you can see here, some of the requirements, it's a little messy on the table, but we have participation, obviously that's a big one. Have everyone participate. Instructions, because of the fact that this is a rural Guatemalan community, they speak a native Mayan language, which is also known as Kikchi. So the little primary school students, the elementary school students, they have a difficult time understanding us when we're speaking in Spanish. So communication for us is also difficult in Spanish, obviously, since we're not native speakers. So we try to minimize the amount of communication we have with them in Spanish, and that's been proven to be successful in the activities where we don't really need to show them to do anything. We just demonstrate it, and they follow suit, using their own creativity, obviously, in the activity. Interactivity, obviously, having the ability to interact with your teammates, and themes. So we try to segregate these activities based upon specific themes, whether they be dancing, engineering days, or other such activities.
Okay, so here we have a quick little timeline of August 2012 to present. So before August 2012, when we traveled to Samoa St. Lucas, we would conduct these informal activities, and then they officially reached out to us. And by August 2012, we started these formal after-school camps, where we work with these children and implement these activities. During the school year of 2013, fall and winter term, we prepared for the spring break trip in March and for the summer trip to May 2013, and we collaborated and worked and just got together and created a group of activities that we could possibly present while we were in the community. And at the same time, we took the feedback that we got from the teachers and the community members and tried to improve upon these activities. So come spring break of 2013 in March, we had 4 days of these after-school camps, and we worked with these kids and these community members. And in between the spring break and the summer trip, between March and May, we had the opportunity to take what the community members said about the activities, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they thought that could be improved on, and we improved upon these activities. And so by May of 2013, when we had 2 times more days in the community, we really had that opportunity to work with these kids in a more effective manner. Come 2013 fall, we had a bank of around, I believe it was 35, 40, 55, somewhere around there, that many activities. And we introduced a variety of new topics ranging from music, dance, animals, just teaching about various cultures of the world through possibly music and dance. So we tried to incorporate not just engineering and English into our activities, but to give the students a little bit of perspective into what's going around the world. January 2014, this past January, we had the internal design review, and this past spring break, we spent another 4 days in the camp implementing these after-school activities.
So I'll talk a little bit about what happened this past spring break because I was one of the trip goers, and it was we saw some moderate amount of success, and I'm happy about that. We got a good amount of engagement for all of these kids. We conducted 4 days of after-school camp, as Tim said. We had an output of around 25 students on some of the days, were the days where there was a greater amount of students. It was around 30 to 45, which was a manageable number for us. We had an engineering day where we built towers out of biodegradable cups. We had a dance session where we taught them Bhangra and other dances from other parts of the world. Arts and Science Day, and all of the days incorporate a team building activity where the kids are asked to work with one another and communicate with one another to do something. The obstacles were, obviously, as we had encountered in previous trips, instruction-heavy activities didn't tend to work as well. So whenever we wanted to really engage with them with an engineering activity that was, we could explain it fairly well in English, but it was really difficult in Spanish, and let alone the native Mayan language, Quechua. That was really difficult, so we had to simplify it down into terms that they can understand. Reflecting with the students after the activities, that was also difficult because obviously reflection requires this kind of communication with one another. So we did do some moderate amount of communication with those students who knew how to speak Spanish, but in terms of the other younger students, it was really hard. An evaluation, it was basically based on the retention of the material we taught them beforehand and the retention of the students from day to day, who came back, who was present all the days. And so that's some of the measures that we used.
So our goals for this upcoming trip in the summer, we have a bank of about 30 to 50 activities that we are able to use. At any given time, we could use any of these activities. That's the point of them. And the idea is that we take what the community members and the teachers say about the activities and improve upon them in the creation of these activities. Once again, these activities range from science, engineering, English, culture, global studies, all sorts of things. We try to incorporate lots of things into what we're teaching the kids. And earlier I mentioned the feedback mechanism that we were trying to implement. And this is just a way so that we can ask the teachers and community members, what worked, what do you think worked best, what worked best for the kids, what do the kids like? And this will allow us to assess, what we're doing with these kids, and for future trips, improve upon that. So the background for the summer 2014, we're going to spend about 14 days in the community, and each day we spend about 45 minutes to an hour working on various activities, ranging from English to culture to engineering, stuff like that. The attendance can range. Some days we see 20 kids, some days we see 50 kids, so it just depends on the day. Normally, we hold these in the schoolyard. It's a large grassy field where you can just move around, get engaged, do all sorts of fun things. And we focus on trying to get the kids to work together. We want them to really collaborate and think together in a team manner. And ideally, we don't want to use too many words to explain what we're trying to accomplish. Like Vinny said, we do have that communication issue between Spanish and then Quechua and then to English. So ideally, we can use the least amount of explanation to try to convey what the activities we're trying to teach them. Here we have an example of what a typical day might look like. So today, we're going to have an engineering day. For the first 15 minutes, we're going to do a team building activity, and everybody's going to stand around in a circle. And I'm sure you guys have all played this. There's going to be a balloon, and the goal is to keep the balloon up in the air. And as time goes on, we're going to add some more balloons, and you got to work together to keep balloons up. I mean, who doesn't love doing that? Let's be serious. After that, we're going to have a little construction activity, monkey see, monkey do. So the idea here is that we get the kids to divide into 6 teams, and there is a replica model that they are asked to build, although the caveat is that only one person from each team can actually see the model. And their goal is to try to convey what they see to a person called the seer, who will then convey, the seer, who will then tell the team, this is how you're supposed to build the model, but they are not allowed to see the model. So the whole idea is that we get these kids to really, work with each other and communicate effectively to build this model. And whichever team builds the most accurate model, quote unquote, wins. Okay, and so, oh wait, is this yours? Yeah, this is yours.
All right, cool. So that was one of the activities that really incorporated a lot of the facets that we as engineers value when we were growing up: communication, design iteration, all those kind of things are emphasizing those kind of activities. And during our engineering days, we try to seek out activities that really hone those kind of skills out in these students. And a lot of the students were successful in participating in that kind of activity. So assessment strategy, we gathered the feedback after our after-school activities. That particular aspect was difficult because the teachers would normally leave as soon as they were done with school, because they actually lived in the nearest city, which is about 2 hours away by bus. So there was really no one else in the community that could oversee us when we were doing these activities, except for the local shop owners and whoever happened to be in the area while they were walking by. And as well, it's difficult to establish that amount of trust with the students so that they can say to us, this activity worked well, this activity didn't work well. Obviously, it's a little bit different when you're asking feedback from the students, but it was difficult to build that trust with them so that they could provide us substantial feedback and meaningful feedback. So potential options we could have is talk to the students after the activities to see what they got out of it. It wouldn't need to be that formal. It could just be like, did you like dancing that other day? And then they could give us a response based on that. And so that could be a potential method. Repeating activity to see if the students remembered the concepts from the first time. Obviously, this is the first time I think Nima has actually came up with these kind of organized structures for the activity bank and everything, so we can obviously reuse the activities that we did from this trip, and in the May trip, we can reuse some of the activity and see, did they remember anything? Were the teams that were able to build something that wasn't exactly as effective able to build something that was more effective? That could be one measure. Also, another measure could also be talking to the students about student participation in the school. The teachers know that we have these activities. Do they see a difference in the kids while we do the after-school camps, while they're in school, in class participating? Is there a difference in that? So those are some potential methods that we will and could potentially use in the future in our May trip. With regards to our Solar Lights team, we do have a good partnership, obviously, with the other project team in Nima. We work with the Nima Solar Lights team during the implementation phase of the prototype. So right now, the Solar Lights team, as you guys have probably heard earlier in today, it's still in more or less the development phase in Gate 1. As they approach Gate 2, we'll be collaborating with them much more closely and helping them in the implementation plan, especially during the informal education workshops that we might plan to implement in March 2015, May 2015 of next year. For example, going to a community member's home, talking to them a little bit about what the solar light is, how can they use it, repair, maintenance, activities such as that, and also activities to get students and community members excited about the light. So we've had solar lights workshops in the past where we talked to them about, some of the circuitry and some of the, advanced concepts and brought it down to the elementary school level or even the middle school level. So the purpose of this team: empower the community members to take ownership over their light. Obviously, implementing a project in a certain community is good if the design is good, but also a major component in that is to make sure that the community members feel invested in it. So that will be our purpose as Solar Lights reaches their implementation phase. Show community members how to use a solar light, obviously. Work out any problems they have with the on and off switch or where to place the panel for charging. Introduce basic concepts of solar technology through interactive activities, and also to discuss where to fix and get replacement parts. And this will be based on the engineering team's implementation plan.
So beyond the actual solar lights, one of our goals is to make sure that these people understand what these solar lights, how they work, what they do, and how to fix them. And so we're starting to think of some example activities to teach them about these solar lights that we're building. And one of these activities involves having students be different components of a circuit. And so the students will get together and create their own little human circuit. Loads of fun. Another example is we'll have a lesson where we teach how photosynthesis works, basically, where they take light from the sun and that gets converted into energy. So just another lesson about how these solar lights work and with the sun. Another example is the absorption of light through materials. So how different materials can affect different energy transfers, such as the black paper and the white paper. I'm sure we all know about that. Beyond that, we'll probably conduct some workshops about how the solar panels that already exist in the community work to power some of their appliances. They have a fridge in the school that works, that's solar powered, and some other devices that are also solar powered. So our plan in the future, this summer, we plan on spending, again, 9 days. And the engineering team will go there and get some feedback from the community members about what they think about the solar lights. And they're going to implement those comments and try to build a better solar light. During the fall of next school year and winter, we will get together with the engineering team and collaborate, think of maybe 6, 10 so activities to implement engineering and solar lights into our education team. So we're really going to see that collaboration between the two project teams. That spring break and summer trip, we're going to bring these solar lights over to the community, try to implement them into the community and see what the various community members think of the solar lights, and whatever comments and feedback we get from them, we're definitely going to bring that back and try to improve upon our solar lights, as well as the education component of the solar lights. So that will be gate 2. Now we're open to any questions and any comments you may have about feedback mechanisms. Yes. Yes.
So I really like your technical communication exercise concept. That sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. And it also gave me an idea based upon some of the constraints you guys said you had about communicating through Spanish and how they have a lot of words in their native language that you can understand. And so do you think it would be possible to have a session set aside where the students have to teach you words in their language, not Spanish words, through like a Pictionary style exercise? Because one of the best ways to learn is to learn how to teach, and so it would be putting them in that position because you're going, so that would be kind of like cultural education for you and technical communication education for them at the same time as well.
That's definitely an amazing idea. That's something that I don't think we've implemented to that degree, and that's something that we definitely will think about and hopefully implement in the future trips that we have. But we have experimented with that idea with our English lessons, because obviously teaching them English and Spanish, where half the students don't understand Spanish, trying to teach them another language is very difficult in that respect. So we asked them to come up to the board and list out the words that we want them to. For example, if I demonstrate me running, what is that activity? Come write it up on the board. They write anilak or something, which is the Quechua word for run. And then we're able to use their knowledge to help them understand English. So in that respect, we've been experimenting around with them teaching us Quechua while we're teaching them English, which is more of a natural cultural exchange because it's 2 languages interchanging with one another. But that's an amazing idea for an after-school activity as well, because the English lessons are obviously a lot more structured, maybe without, it could still be with structure. But that's a good idea.
I was wondering, are the kids broken up into age groups when you work with them, or do you have to provide for, first graders, sixth graders at the same time?
So with the after-school camp activities, normally, as you've seen before, the activities that require a little bit of more expertise and more guidance, we break out into these teams. So we make sure that these teams are formed of students below the age of something, and then the students who are above that age, they can be on their own team with minimal guidance. But the students who are 7 or 8, then 2 Sanima members will be there and helping them out and making sure they understand this activity. Whereas the older group might not need that much guidance, and they might feel like they wouldn't even want that much guidance too. They would want to be more independent. So that's kind of the way in which we break out into these age groups, just on a day-to-day basis. Because the thing is that these kids also have to do farm work at certain times of the year, and they have to go harvest. So the kids that we get vary from day to day. So we really can't really have like a set structure, like these kids are going to come in this day and then work with only this team, because that varies a lot.
I know you mentioned you have a lot of activities that you teach to the students. Is there any possibility of designing activities that you would teach to the teachers and then they could use it throughout the school year?
We've
Yeah, sure. So we've thought about that. One of the issues that we have thought about is how we don't really want to impose on the teachers. You know, our job isn't supposed to teach the teachers. We don't want to offend them in any way like that. Our goal is to teach the kids, and
And we've actually thought about, like, as you said, like, suppose if the students really, really like one of the activities, and the teachers see the activities and they're like, wow, this is a really good activity. We want to develop a system in which we can hand them the materials, give them an instruction manual of some sort to basically do the activity over again, because if they really liked it, and it's a good way to reemphasize some concepts, whether it be in English or in other, disciplines, they can do that. Problem is that, as Tim mentioned, the cultural way in which you approach this as, foreigners coming in, and we're obviously a lot younger than some of the teachers, there are some cultural divides that we need to talk through, and we've talked about that. We talked about that with our in-country partner, Casacito, to see what would be a good way to broach that subject. So, starting from this May trip, we'll casually introduce that question, like, hey, would you be even interested in, doing that kind of thing? We don't want to go in there and, hand them this pack and say, these are all our activities, you got to do these, So maybe going about that a little bit more subtly and a lot, But yeah, but basically we have thought about that, and we're looking to do that in a way that would be culturally acceptable, I think is the answer.
I know you're looking for feedback ideas. Is there, I don't know how it is there with writing. I know you said it's hard because some of them know Spanish, then there's their local language. Like our team sent a survey. It worked out because everyone speaks English. But maybe if we could figure out a way to translate a survey into the local language or Spanish, and then have the kids just kind of have like a circle yes or no, or and then maybe after the lesson can hand them out, and then maybe collect feedback that way if it's difficult to talk, to them, to get them to say what they liked about an activity.
That's a really good idea. I think we haven't utilized surveys that much. We started to we have a couple of survey responses from the teacher that we had from this past trip. That was through Spanish. But through Catchy, that might be a good idea, just to see what some of the kids think. I think maybe the reason why we didn't want to do that, but we might want to revisit this topic, is that handing them a survey seems a lot more formal than just talking to them. So the best way to get good feedback about things that we have never thought about is just to have an open conversation with them. And we're getting to that point, I believe, but maybe having in our limited trips where it's difficult to build that trust, maybe that can be a strategy that we could use.
Going off of that, I was wondering if it would be possible to just ask the teachers maybe the day after we do an activity during the school day to talk to them, to talk to the kids, and it could be a survey or a conversation where the teachers get the feedback from the kids, and then because it seems like the teachers would be able to effectively translate between the two languages for you, and sort of use them as like a middleman.
That's
that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I guess it's difficult to not impinge on the teacher's time, because we're obviously borrowing the teacher's time when or even in the classroom asking them to do anything, we're impinging. So having them also translate for us, responses from the kids would obviously take a lot of time. But there are a couple of teachers, and this is something we're working on, there are a couple of teachers who actually stay in the elementary school. And, we've developed some relationships with one of the teachers who stays in the elementary school, who does know how to speak Kekchi. So we've developed a relationship, and I think that's one of the ways we might want to pursue this strategy further, is to have him attend our after-school camps, which he was willing to do on the days where he, was just there. And it's difficult to know when he's there and when he's not, because, it's development work and these kind of things aren't really planned out. But he can obviously translate for us on real time after the activities. How do you think that went? What do you think went well? What do you think went wrong? So that can be a strategy used too.